Okay, it's 10 o'clock and let's see that we are recording. It looks like the video is going. So I will go ahead and call the meeting to order. The chair notes there's a quorum present and we'll do the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, 2.0 is additions and revisions to the agenda. So there is, we are going to be pulling 5.3, the courthouse phone system modernization. And Kelly did a little bit more research. There's an email in your packet.
Which one was it?
5.3,
About the phones.
the phones.
Okay.
We're going to pull that because the one person or one company that responded, our tech people are saying their systems aren't compatible with ours. So that might cause more trouble than it's worth. So Kelly's going back out to see if we can find some other options. So the ongoing saga continues. Any other additions or revisions?
I did receive this morning a red line. I thought maybe we might want to add it in behind which, and just so we can move it forward. What do we want to do with it from here? And then I also have and got this morning the permit for the right-of-ways for the solar project. And I think it just needs to be signed, but I thought we better see what to do to move it on. So then wait another 2 weeks.
Okay. Oh, yeah. And that's the other thing is the executive session is also coming off. Okay. So for 5.6, I'll add the Caithness Road Maintenance Agreement. And then let's just do 5.7 is the Avangrid right-of-way.
Right-of-way permit.
It's actually the contractor that's
It's a
doing
permit
work
for the contractor.
Sterling Wilson is who the application is from.
Sterling
And we've
Wilson.
already got,
Sterling Wilson, yes.
and we've already got a permit with Avangrid, so.
Commissioner, could you send me that documentation, please?
You have copies for us?
So could we, here's what I'm going to suggest, actually. Why don't we move those down under Kimberly Lindsay's, and then maybe while Kimberly's presenting, we could make copies so that Sherry
That
and I
would be
can
good.
see copies of them.
I can do that, Pat.
That'd be great, thank you.
You're busy, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will add those. I'll go ahead and just do like 6.1A and 6.1B, I think. Just right after Kimberly. That way we've got a little bit of time to read them. Okay, any other additions or revisions? I noted the exec session is coming off. Okay. Correspondence and public comment. Individuals wishing to address the county court may do so at this time and at other times throughout the meeting. Speakers are asked to raise your hand to be recognized by the chair, give your name and address, and limit comments to 3 minutes. For those who are signed in via Zoom, if you dialed in, it's *6 to unmute yourself. Or those who are on your phone or on your computer, it's the lower left-hand side is the mute button. Is there any public comment? And again, we're pretty informal here. So as we move through the agenda, if there's something that you have questions on or want to participate in the discussion, we obviously welcome that as we move through the agenda. I don't see any, so we'll move into correspondence. We have got the final report from South Gilliam County Cemetery District's Special Projects Grant for review. So that will be part of the packet. There is also a letter that I think both Pat and I signed that went to Governor Brown. That was a joint AOC, Association of Oregon Counties, and Orla, which is Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association, regarding the latest round of shutdowns in, I think, about 15 counties. And I understand since then that the governor has lifted that starting on Friday. So that's good news. But that, for anyone who is interested, I won't read the whole letter, it's lengthy, but all of our correspondence is included as part of the packet online. So you can see what that letter looks like.
There was a response letter from the governor that came in late that didn't get included in that too, that I'm sure you saw.
Yes. Her, at the time, it sounded like she wasn't going to change her position, and I don't know what has changed since
The
then.
percentages from what, well, I don't know, maybe it was, but percentages came down on hospitalizations, looks like the main reason she's
Yeah.
changing her position.
And then there's also, just as an FYI, a letter from Senator Finley and Representative Owens to Governor Brown and Director Pat Allen, who is the Oregon Health Authority Director, also talking about the shutdowns of our businesses, and in essence saying that, well, their first sentence says respectfully, enough is enough. So if anybody wants to read that, that is included as well as an FYI for folks. So those are all under correspondence, and they are online, available on the county's website for folks who are interested. Let's move into 4.0, which is consent agenda. Any questions on this one?
And my word, what a bunch of documentation of the dispute grant stuff.
Oh, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, did you get all that?
In case
Right.
you were wondering if they're qualified or not, it looks like they are.
You would hope so. I move to approve the consent agenda.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda, which consists of consider approval of April 21st, 2021 regular meeting minutes, consider approval of April 21st, 2021 executive session minutes, and consider approval of Community Dispute Resolution Services 6 Rivers grant application for 2021 through 2023. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, let's move on to 5.1, which is unfinished business. This is the second reading and adoption of ordinance number 2021-02, an ordinance to amend Gilliam County Zoning and Land Development Ordinance affecting Article 4, Section 4.020, exclusive farm use zone, by adding guest ranch provisions. Articles affected include Article 1 and Article 11. And so just to recap, this is the step 2 to the hearing that we held during our last meeting, where we held the hearing and then moved forward with the first reading of this ordinance. And so just as a reminder, ordinance needs to be read twice before adoption, 13 days apart. And so the court wanted to proceed, we'd be looking for a second reading and then adoption.
I move to have the second reading of ordinance number 2021-02 by title only.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded to have the second reading of ordinance number 2021-02 by title only. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. In the county court, let me see. Ordinance number 2021-02 in the county court of the state of Oregon in and for the county of Gilliam, in the matter of an ordinance providing for amendments to the Gilliam County Zoning and Land Development Ordinance affecting Article 4, Section 4.020, exclusive farm use zone, by adding guest ranch provisions. Other articles affected include Article 1 and 11.
I move to accept the second reading of ordinance number 2021-02 by title only and to adopt the ordinance.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we accept the second reading of ordinance number 2021-02 by title only and to adopt the ordinance. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Moving on to 5.2, this is second reading and adoption of ordinance number 2021-03, an ordinance to amend Gilliam County Comprehensive Plan zoning map and amend Gilliam County Zoning and Land Development Ordinance Article 4 by adding section 4.130 RR-2 Rural Residential 2 Zone. Again, we held the public hearing on April 21st and proceeded with the first reading of the ordinance. So we'd be looking for a second reading and adoption if the court wishes to proceed.
Where's the motion?
I moved to have the second reading of ordinance number 2021-03 by title only.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to have the second reading of ordinance number 2021-03 by title only. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. In the county court for the state of Oregon, in and for the county of Gilliam, ordinance number 2021-03, in the matter of an ordinance providing for amendments to the Gilliam County Zoning and Land Development Ordinance, affecting Article 4, adding section 4.1030 RR-2 Rural Residential 2 Zone, an amendment to comprehensive plan / zoning map to apply rural residential 2 to portion of city of Condon urban growth boundary, that section north of Cottonwood Lane and bordered by Highway 19 on the east and bordered by Brown Lane to the west.
I move to accept the second reading of ordinance number 2021-03 by title only and to adopt the ordinance.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded that we accept the second reading of ordinance number 2021-03 by title only and to adopt the ordinance. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. We're all done, Michelle. I see Michelle on there.
Thanks for listening.
Okay, and as I noted, 5.3 was removed from the agenda. So we'll go into 5.4, which is discuss airbase road project. And so we put kind of a summary on here, but I'll just state for the record that this has been an ongoing question for, I mean, we're talking decades ongoing. So basically, John's here too, John Barnett, from Radar Holdings.
A lot older now than when we started.
I'm not even sure you were around when they first started this. It goes way back in the record.
Might be before your time.
So basically, John's here to talk to us about the road department assisting the community at the airbase with replacing the road that goes kind of in through the community. We have talked about this previously. I'll note for the record as well that Roadmaster Dewey Kennedy is with us. And so we had talked to Dewey previously. He had been open to doing it. At the time, which was about, I think, 1.5 years ago, the project was going to cost an estimated $70,000. I'm sure it's probably gone up since then. But one of the things that we had sort of thrown out was the idea of maybe looking at doing a one-time replacement in exchange for a commitment from Radar Holding to make available some new housing units. And John and I had talked about that offline as well. And then just so that folks know for the record, this is in the briefing as well. But we've been determined that this particular road is a local access road. And so basically, Teresa poured through all of the commissioner's journals to see if the court had ever decided that they wanted to actually take this on as a county road. There's no motion that says that they actually did that and did all the steps that they needed to
So
make it.
local access, is that different than public use?
So basically, when it was deeded, I think there's in here, it says, yeah, there was a resolution creating the subdivision plat for Baden Heights, which is now what we call the air base. The resolution contained language dedicating it to the use of the public forever, the state's drives and ways designated on said plat, which basically created a local access road. And my understanding from that is that basically it just means that it's available for the public to use, but no entity ever claimed it. And so it stays with whoever owns the land.
So it really doesn't qualify under the public use where it says that the county can spend money on it that determines that the public use of the road justifies the expenditure proposed?
It could, because there are multiple households there. And so I think the court could, under the statute, decide that we consider that public because it's not, I think if there was one house at the end, you'd have a hard time saying, but because it's an actual community with, how many homes are up there, John?
25.
With 25 homes, that you could consider that a public use with that number, since it's not just a private driveway to one home. And then just as a reminder, it is a local access road, so it is not a county road because the county has never accepted and designated that as a road. The court would have had to make a resolution to do that.
Right.
And they have not done so. So
They talked about it at one time.
they talked
they
about
never-
it.
They never got
They
it.
kept tabling the motion.
They talked about it,
Yeah,
yeah,
back in,
back in the 70s even, I think they had
The
discussions.
70s, and we bought it, talked to Laura, and then everybody was gonna do it. Just hasn't materialized.
It's just never been
It
done.
was ready a couple of times.
Actually, the
Dewey's
previous
always been
owner
ready.
before them came in and
mhm.
said it was a county road. And basically demanded that we go to work on it. Well, that's when all of this research started happening. And found out that it was not a county road. We do plow the snow on it. And we have done some minor patching as we patch by on Richmond Road. Nothing major has been done to the site.
So Dewey, on the cost estimates, because I know this was a long time ago when we first started talking.
And I went through the numbers all this morning and everything. We can actually shave it down because of the equipment we have now. We don't have to rent a paver. We have our own paver, and we also have the grinder to recycle the asphalt. So we'll be able to clean the streets up, pick everything up, bring it to our plant, process it, run it into the pug mill, take it right out and lay it.
So what do you think your
I'm
revised
saying
estimate would be?
right now with everything, it'd be probably right around 50,000. That's to pick it up, prep the streets back again, and then repave it.
What's your window on that? Access
We
to,
had that
Well,
discussion this morning.
that is, right now, our plan is July 6th, we're gonna start paving Ray Road, Arlington Airport, the north end of the county. And then I'm hoping to fine tune our operation, because that's a little more skill to do that up there. Fine tune our operation and then pick up and come in here. We have a couple of projects for the city of Condon. They'd like us to pick up asphalt, recycle it and relay it and just do Condon and the airbase at the same time, if time allows. It depends on how fast things go in Arlington and then what the weather does to us and stuff. But I don't see a problem.
Okay.
So we should be able to work clear through, middle to end of September.
So when you're talking 50,000, how much that's just kind of in kind in the system, how much would be actual cash out of the road department budget?
That's the cost. I broke it down. That's the material, the freight, the pug mill loader, water truck, dump trucks, roller, paver, travel, everything. Excavator, everything to get everything prepped and excavated. This should be, that should have been in that file, because this was given to.
Yeah,
It
it
is,
Oh, it is, oh, okay.
but it's at
Okay.
70,000.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there should be a sheet in there that says air-based street removal, and then another sheet that says repave with recycled asphalt.
3 sheets.
mhm.
Mhm.
There's removal,
This, I never received.
chip
the-
seal,
I didn't receive the
and
new ones. This is from last year.
Right, and that's, they all should have been together.
Yeah, air-based street removal.
Yeah.
Chip
Street
seal.
removal.
Mhm.
and
Yeah, the
then-
question is, this comes to 70,000, now you're saying 50.
Well, that's if we do it with recycled asphalt. Yes. Does that say recycled asphalt on that one? I went through all my files. I was having a little issue with my computer this morning. Some of my stuff is hidden in a spot.
Because some of it, because what you were saying is that the reason it would be 50 now is that we have since purchased some equipment that,
Yes, we
That
have,
makes
we have some of the equipment now. Yeah, it'll be a lot more efficient.
so commissioners, what, do you have questions, thoughts? I mean, like I said, one of the things that we had talked previously was sort of doing a trade in that, the way I was kind of viewing it is if the county made the investment of the 50,000, that would potentially be money that Radar Holdings could use instead of fixing the street, they could use it toward rehabbing some of how many houses are still up there that are?
We've still got 8 more to go. There's 17 that are done,
how many of them are occupied?
all of them.
All of them.
And so I just wondered if maybe this is an opportunity, if we wanted to do this, to see if Radar Holdings might be interested in doing kind of a trade. Like we would fix the road as a one-time thing. In exchange, they would make a commitment to having, I don't know how many housing units that would be, obviously up for discussion and negotiation. But I wonder if that, given that housing is part of our strategic plan, if maybe there's an interest in,
So if you've got
Discussing
8
that.
houses left, I can assume they're the 8 that were in the worst shape,
They're what?
the 8 that are in the worst shape.
No,
Not
No, they're
Can
necessarily.
all-
you fix to them for $50,000?
yeah, we can do one, will cost us about that to remodel and gut it like we have been.
Is that a commitment we could get, that we get another house in the
Yeah,
county?
yeah.
I mean, I understand the cost of materials are way up and it's expensive.
Yeah, right,
I
yeah.
mean, I get that.
terrible.
It's not even a good time to do it, but
The market is definitely.
I just think
changed.
because it does open a bit of a can of worms and how, when we're going into private property, who else is gonna make the similar kind of request?
Right.
Not that we have we really don't have a similar location like that, but
Right.
I've got no problem committing to that. We've, I look at it differently. We've already done 17. Taxes have helped the county, on the property taxes over the last, 15 years. So there's some value there. But I've got no problem committing to it. The market's changed. It's kind of worth it now. So
Mhm.
I'd like to hear what that looks like as far as our attorneys are concerned. What does that agreement look like and how do we get there and how quickly can we get there if that's what we decide we want to do?
It seems like it could be a pretty straightforward, is there a ta- 'cause
I'll
they would-
commit to starting on one by June. We've got one house that I'm looking at that we'll have to get, they have storage in there right now and have to get that out, give them some notice.
So how would the court, would you guys like me to go work with John and our attorneys to just do a simple agreement?
Yeah.
Just so that it's written out and that way it's clean for the record.
Yeah. I think so.
And then, so the commitment would be that we would do a one-time fix using the road department, make clear that we're not assuming responsibility. It's not a county road.
Right.
We're just doing the one-time thing through this. I think it allows us to do,
Yeah, it looks like it's.
this
it's,
once.
We want to have 40.
how long, by the way, with this kind of fix, what's the lifespan on that?
You know, for the traffic they have there and stuff, as long as they don't do any more utility digs, probably 15 to 20 years before it needs to have a chip seal or something done to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll all be gone by then.
Oh, yes. You know, it should last almost
Totally
as long as the original surface.
Okay,
Which has been 70 years.
Yeah.
Right?
You
perfect.
know, it's like everything, there's a certain amount of maintenance that needs to continue to go on, you know, and so if a crack appears, trees out there, different things, address it, don't let it get to,
Right.
and that's what's happened in the past is the facility was vacant for so long. And then when these guys took it over, they had some water repairs and some other stuff. That stuff wasn't patched back, and so it let water get under, and that causes issues.
Got it.
Yeah, no, it should last well past our lifetime.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure I've got all the parameters. So we would agree to a one-time fix starting this summer, early fall time, dependent on the road department schedule. In exchange, Radar Holdings would make a commitment to do one housing unit starting in June. When do you think it could be completed, John?
Well, I'm doing it's going to take a while.
Yeah, I think I'm concerned about how long it's really going to take because we know that happens, but let's just. make sure
Usually
there's
it's anywhere,
commitment.
when Tom and I were doing it, it was 3 months.
But I
Okay.
would say it's 6
But
months or
I
a
think
year
so
completion
too.
time.
Could we do, I mean, we could either do end of the calendar year or we could do end of the fiscal year. So by next June. Do you have a preference?
I don't have a preference. I just think you do need to put an end on it. So
Yeah, we do need.
The
it,
attorneys
just
will want to
not-
have,
Yeah, just not immediate, I don't think is.
is it reasonable to say December 31st? Or would you like more time than that?
Till when?
December
To
31st.
December 31st of this year.
Yeah, should be, yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
okay. I will get together with John and our attorneys and have Christy put together something really simple, and then we'll get it back on the court's agenda for approval, but it sounds like we have consensus to move forward. We just need to dot the i's and cross the t's.
yeah, let's do this, yeah, let's get Christie to give it some priority so we can
We can do that.
get it done. So Dewey knows what his
Yeah.
schedule is.
The sooner the better for me, so I
Right.
can put it on my work schedule.
I will email her as soon as we wrap up this meeting. How about that?
I like it. Stop talking and do something.
Okay, so
Right.
I think I've got the parameters and we'll bring it back on the court's agenda as soon as she has something turned around, and I'll just work with John on
Okay,
making
thank
sure
you.
he's comfortable with the language.
Good, thank you.
Look at that. That was
Yeah.
Easy
that was
peasy.
painless.
30 years.
I was
40
gonna
years, 50
say,
years.
if you don't count how long.
It was
took
only,
to get
yeah, it was
there.
only 50 years and a 10-minute
Yeah, walk a
discussion.
little different than I used to.
Thanks,
Thank you.
John.
Thank you.
Okay, let's do 5.5, which is consider approval of Montague Solar Road Maintenance Agreement. Pat, do you wanna?
And it's in the packet. What happened with that was we got back a suggested changes to the original agreement from our attorney. Don't know. But it was really just a body of an email with some suggested stuff, and I wasn't really sure what to do with that. I talked to Andrea and ended up sending her suggested changes to them to run through their legal.
Uh-huh,
And they ran it through their legal and made the changes. And so in the packet, it has their changes that they put in. It also has the final document. I read the difference between the two. I think it's well covered. They made some simple changes, like instead of parties, I think it's company in Gilliam County. They made some other changes that she didn't have, and I didn't see any problem with it. I don't think it needs any more work.
Okay,
If you guys are good with it, I'm sure good with it.
I didn't have any concerns
I
with it.
didn't
As long as
either.
Christie saw it and
Yeah,
give her feedback, I'm good. Do we have a motion on this?
Mr. Kennedy is on board.
Make a motion to approve the Montague Solar Project Road Maintenance Agreement as presented in the package, yes.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the Montague Solar Road Use Agreement as presented in the packet. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
And I have to say that this project down here, those people communicate so much better than the prior projects. I talk to them, if not on the phone or the computer, once a week, and then I stop by and talk to them. They're upfront. It's a good group right now, that we have now.
Great.
I don't know what it'll be like when the main contractor gets there and they start doing their installation, but right now.
You're really talking to the substation.
The substation contractors, those
Right.
gentlemen down there and Avangrid themselves have been great.
Great.
Okay, good.
Fantastic. Okay, we'll go into 6.1, which is Community Counseling Solutions Update. And I see Kimberly's with us. Hey, Kimberly.
Good morning. Sorry I'm not there in person. That was my intention. And then the morning just slid sideways.
As it does.
Yeah, so I actually very much appreciated the opportunity to participate by Zoom. So thanks for that. Yeah, so good to see everyone. Judge, is it Farrar Campbell? Is it hyphenated, or I just want to get it right?
Yep, it's not technically hyphenated. It's just two last names.
Okay, Farrar Campbell.
And Elizabeth Campbell here, and I didn't want to do that to her. So
There you go. Okay, there we go. And Commissioner Wilkins, good to see you again. And Commissioner Shannon, I'm not sure that we have met. I think this is the first time that I have met with Gilliam County since you took office, but I don't know. I don't know. I have COVID brain, so I apologize. Just good to see everyone and look forward to seeing folks in person. So I sent Teresa a couple of documents, and I thought that perhaps the best one to go over first was it's a PowerPoint. It's Community Counseling Solutions Overview of Outpatient Programs. It's potentially just a good refresher on what CCS is in part and what we do. And I promise to go through it quickly. I did want to offer this to Commissioner Shannon that I would be happy to drive to meet you and provide you with more detailed information on Community Counseling Solutions, how we came to be in Gilliam County, and the different services that we provide. So if that's something that would be helpful, that would be, I'd be happy to do that. So do you have the document that I'm referring to in front of you?
So
Yes.
I don't.
Was it a separate email?
I don't have it either.
I don't see it in the packet.
Well, it's on the website.
Oh,
If
okay.
you want to go to the website.
Okay.
It's not in there. That's.
walk us through it, Kimberly.
Yeah.
I could, if you give me a second, I could share my screen. I don't know if the document or if my screen is close enough to all of you to see it. Would that be helpful?
That would be great. Yeah, we have a large screen in here, so.
Okay, let me pull the document up and then I'll share my screen.
Screen share, I have to make a co-host, which would knock you off. But the recording would continue, correct? The recording would continue. And then we could.
Okay, so before I start to share, This document provides an overview of our outpatient behavioral health programs. And just to be clear, behavioral health is referring to addictions and mental health. And that's probably what we are most known for in Gilliam County, are the outpatient services that are provided in the community as well as in the schools. We have the outpatient clinicians that see kids and families and adults, but in the schools, those school-based counselors are just seeing kiddos that are identified by the school who would benefit from some additional support. But we also provide developmental disability services. Those are individuals who generally were born with a disability, something like Down syndrome or cerebral palsy, who their family would benefit from some additional support, and there's funding that that accompanies each individual as they progress through life, that helps them remain successful in the community. In the past, in the 70s, a lot of folks were institutionalized. They were sent to, in Oregon, they went to Damish State Hospital. However, the state was sued due to that institutionalized care. And in the mid-90s, Damish was closed down, and it was largely, it all largely went to community-based care and in-home care, with a few exceptions. So that's the developmental disability program in a nutshell. We have 3 employees that provide services in Morrow, Wheeler, and Gilliam, specifically eligibility, protective services, and then case management. We also, we do other things. We have the health department in Grant County. We have 2 residential programs for adults who have a significant mental illness. We have the foster grandparent senior companion program for Eastern Oregon, which puts low-income seniors back to work. They receive a stipend, and then it doesn't impact their Social Security. And then a statewide warm line program. So that's CCS in a nutshell. This document, though, is specific to the services that we offer in Gilliam County. So I will share my screen now. Oh, it says disabled participant, says host disabled participant screen sharing. So you'd have to allow me to do that.
I've got it up here if you guys.
Yeah, I do
I've
too.
got it up, so you don't need to share.
Yeah, I've got it written. So
Yeah, we're fine.
they've got it. So they've got it on their screen. You can just walk us.
Excellent. I'll walk you through it. Tell me if I'm going too fast or too slow. Again, we'll just skip through some of these pages. Second page is our mission statement. I'm sorry, these aren't numbered. Third page is some photos of some of our offices. You'll see top right is the not newly remodeled, older picture of the South Gilliam Health Center, but those are just some of our offices. CCS services and locations. These are all of the services that we offer. And the next page that's just entitled services, these are specific to behavioral health, outpatient behavioral health. I'm just going to read through these real quick. These are all the services that are provided in Gilliam County. So triage within 15 minutes. Somebody contacts us and they want services. We talk with them within 15 minutes. That's our goal, to determine what level of care they need and how urgent our response needs to be. And then based upon the urgency, doing the full screening and assessment, individual, group, family counseling, skills training, case management, psychiatric services. We have 2 psychiatrists that work with us. EMDR, zero suicide, dialectical behavioral training, frontline. It's a program that we offer to law enforcement. We'll talk about that in a minute. Supported employment, assertive community treatment, peer services, jail diversion, problem gambling treatment, early assessment and support for kids who are and young adults who are newly identified as suffering from psychosis, wraparound intensive in-home behavioral health treatment, DUI and substance use counseling, older adult and veteran services, school-based counseling, investigations and examinations for the court, abuse and neglect investigations for people who are abused in the community that have a mental health issue, equine therapy, video counseling services, counseling crisis intervention, problem gambling prevention, higher levels of care. We recently wrote for and received the COVID FEMA grant, which hired a person in Gilliam County to provide outreach, forensics, and we recently started a mental health treatment court in Gilliam County. So that's a lot. To me, it feels like a lot. I hope it feels like to you, you're getting a comprehensive array of services. All of the subsequent pages speak to every dot that I just referenced. So I will go through those. But I don't want to bore you, and I can't see you, so I can't tell when people, I mean, I can, but I don't know if you're nodding off. So I'm passionate about it, but I absolutely get that other people aren't, like it's maybe not as exciting. A few years ago, we adopted the Zero Suicide movement as an organization. So the word zero is absolutely aspirational, right? It's unlikely that there will not be another suicide in Gilliam County ever. But the question that we ask ourselves is, how many suicides are we okay with? And, we can't say any. What if the one that occurred was your uncle, your aunt, your husband, your wife, your child? Like, you don't want to be that one that we say, okay, well, it's one and we're okay with the one. So again, aspirational, and yet something that we want to work towards and strive to. So within Zero Suicide, there are several core tenets that we're constantly working on and addressing. We have a Zero Suicide leadership team that meets regularly, a lot of trainings that the staff are going through. And one of the documents that I wanted to talk a little bit more about is a workforce survey that we just took. So I'm not going to talk about Zero Suicide anymore, because I'll touch on that again in a few minutes. Remote services, you can, we were doing this before the pandemic, but if you want to be seen remotely, you can for the most part. As long as you have a good internet connection and a cell phone or a laptop that has a camera, we can do a lot of our services by video. And you can pay online. Crisis services. So we have 3 teams, Morrow, Grant, and then Wheeler and Gilliam share a team and a backup rotation team. So we make commitments per the contract that Gilliam County signs with the state to be available by phone within 15 minutes, to be on site within 2 hours. Usually our response time is less than that. However, if the clinician's in Arlington and they need to travel down to Mitchell, that's not gonna, happen in an hour. And through that, there's different supports that are offered when we respond on site with a crisis. And again, we don't ask law enforcement to take the person to the hospital in the Dalles. We first respond on site, work with law enforcement, work with the individual to come up with a plan. And if a higher level of care is needed, we might need to get them cleared at an emergency room. Next page is Frontline. That's a program we started up in response to the pandemic because there was a lot of stress upon our law enforcement medical personnel. So we provide free counseling sessions with a trained individual who trains specifically for law enforcement and counseling support. We've had good use of that program. Chris Humphreys oversees that program. You might remember him from Wheeler County. He's nearly done with his 4th or 5th master's. I think it's his second master's in counseling in addition to his criminal justice degree. The psych services, I referenced them earlier. These are available during the week, but we do have after hours access to Dr. Pattinson and Mohammed Ba, and they are full-time employees. Dialectical behavioral therapy is one of the more sought after evidence-based practices that we offer. So we just called it out here EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. I have to admit, when this first came out 20 years ago or 30, it's been a while, I was skeptical of this practice. But in the last probably 5 years, I've become a believer. It is probably at the forefront of modern progressive treatment for people that have suffered from intense trauma. I encourage you to look it up. We've had great efficacy, excellent results from it. People are calling us wanting to receive it. We don't have enough people trained. We're in the process of training more clinicians. Everybody wants to go to the week-long EMDR training and have the equipment. So we've added that one. Supported employment, that is working specifically with individuals who have a severe and persistent mental illness who haven't been working in a while. We all know that we feel better when we have a job and something meaningful to do when we get up in the morning, and we know that employment often is an important part of that. So just doing the best we can to provide meaningful employment to everybody regardless of their disability. Assertive community treatment provides a lot of intensive supports to individuals with a major mental illness to keep them out of the state hospital. First of all, there's no room at the inn, as I like to say at the state hospital. We can't get people in. There's a host of reasons for that. All the more reason why we need to wrap a lot of support around them to keep them in the community and doing well. Gilliam County hasn't had anyone in the state hospital 3 years, 2 or 3 years. And even then it wasn't a civil commitment. It was an aid and assist person, and they weren't there for very long. Early Assessment and Support Alliance. This provides dedicated, focused, specialized treatment to young adults. Generally people between the ages of 15 and 23 who've experienced their first psychotic break, who we want to do the best job that we can to support them and their family, educate them, and try to keep them out of higher levels of care. This program was developed over on the west side of Oregon and is now a nationally recognized program. School-based counseling services, we provide a lot of those in Gilliam County. Both Arlington and Condon have school-based counselors. The Arlington school-based counselor position, I think we're trying to fill it right now, but Condon, that's been filled for a while, and I think, but she's out on maternity leave right now. That's Michelle Hams. Wraparound services, these are supports that we provide to youth and their families to keep them again in the community. So an example of this that I like to use is a family that we were working with was at risk of being evicted because the mom couldn't get to work because she's a single parent and transmission had went out her car. She worked out of town about a half an hour, so it wasn't a matter of just catching a ride. So we worked with the repair shop to get a discounted deal on a transmission. We did a little fundraising. We used some of our funds to replace the transmission so that the mom could work, so that they didn't get evicted, so that the kid could, remain stable and doing well in the home. That's just one example of wraparound supports that we try to provide to keep families doing well. This next one, intensive in-home behavioral treatment, it's pretty similar, provides intensive in-home services, at least 6 hours a week of support in the home to kids who are at risk for out-of-home placement. That's the biggest component of IIBHT. There's some additional psychiatric services that come with that, but a lot of support in the home. We wrote for and received a veterans grant, so we've really been increasing the work that we've been doing to veterans. We also hired an older adult LCSW, licensed clinical social worker, that specializes in the treatment of older adults, and they have been actively working, and they have several individuals enrolled in their services in Gilliam County. We provide substance use treatment. I'm not going to talk so much about that. The treatment court, we need to update this because, as I said, Gilliam County started a mental health treatment court. It's been an awesomely fun partnership with the Justice Court and our clinician and Chris Humphreys, as well as Marion Weatherford. So maybe at some point next time I meet with you, we could just talk a little bit about that. Really have enjoyed that program. Problem gambling treatment, that's available in Gilliam County. We don't have a lot of people that engage in that. We provide anger management, sex offender counseling, and domestic violence counseling, really as a service to the district attorneys who sometimes need people referred to those programs. Prevention, we have an active prevention program that we pay the schools to provide. And lots of peer services. We have one full-time peer in Gilliam County who work with people on caseloads, and I think we're going to be hiring a second. The FEMA grant, second to last page, again, we wrote for and received a grant from FEMA to employ one outreach worker in Gilliam and one in Wheeler. They often partner up and meet with businesses and individuals and provide information and work with the schools on the fallout from COVID and ways to stay healthy. Okay, like I feel like I talked a lot. I don't know. Anyways, there's a lot of information in that packet on those core services that we provide in Gilliam County. Are there any questions on that?
Really?
So on your contact, you don't have anybody in Gilliam County or Condon or Arlington, or the clinic in Arlington on the contact list?
I'm not sure.
Thank you for pointing that out. That's because I know the reason why they did this, because we don't have full-time clerical support in Arlington and Condon. And so we can put those numbers, and we need to, we will, but when they call, they get routed to the 3 offices that we do have the full-time person, so that they always get somebody answering the phone. But I absolutely see, Commissioner Shannon, how like that looks like we don't have offices there. So we will add that. And we'll add those phone numbers. They just get redirected to, if they walk in, they talk with somebody, but if they call, that's where they get redirected to initially, and then they get patched through to their clinician.
Other questions for Kimberly?
I have a couple more things I wanted to go over if I have time. Do I have time?
Yeah, we've got time.
Okay. So I said I wanted to visit just a little bit more about zero suicide, something that's near and dear to my heart, just important to me, and the work, all of what we do is important, but this one I have to admit is just a little bit closer in my onion for layers. So I sent a document. It's kind of boring. It's the line said in print, it's an Excel worksheet, and at the top it says Zero Suicide Workforce Survey. Do you have that?
Yes.
Okay.
Your talk, Pat. You're welcome.
So one of the components of zero suicide is the comfort level of your staff in working with people who are at risk of suicide. And we like to say that the people who are at risk of suicide, if they are in our office, like, that's great. But we know that about 50% of the folks that are at risk of suicide never enter a mental health office. So there's a lot of opportunity, and maybe you might say missed opportunities that are had every day out and about in the communities and on the streets. And that's why, just getting the word out about zero suicide and providing some basic training to the community is so important, so that those opportunities aren't missed. And one of the examples that I would use for this is that you're at the grocery store and, you know, somebody's maybe lost a loved one recently due to a death, any kind of death, and you ask them how they're doing and they say, oh, you know, I've been better. Sometimes the tendency is to say, oh, you know, cheer up, tomorrow will be better. You know, I've been there, I understand. It took about 6 months and, you know, then everything was better for me. And that's great. There is a lot of heartfelt emotion and comments and feelings in that. But what if the next day isn't better and the next day after that isn't better? And then the person kind of starts to feel like maybe they, you know, they're somehow different, or they're never going to get better because everybody said they should feel better. And then that just gets to be a bit of a vicious cycle. So just helping people have tools that are really everywhere, even you at the courthouse. You know, somebody might come in looking for the mental health office and you can tell they're not doing well. And you could say, you know, I just want you to go down the street and that's where the mental health office is. And in between point A and point B, they decide to not go, you know, to the mental health office. And there's, you know, something tragic that potentially happens. So I want to talk about question, persuade, refer. If you look at this document, we're first looking at within CCS in our work environment. This first page is where do people work that took this survey that work within CCS. So it's interesting, it's helpful, but it's really, this is within CCS and the different places that people are employed. But our commitment is that everybody is going to get basic training, regardless if they're a board member, a maintenance worker, fixing the sprinklers, or myself. Everybody needs to have some basic understanding because you never know when you're going to talk with somebody that's struggling. And then we want the next page is asking folks, do you know what zero suicide is? Are we really educating all of our workforce? Have they heard of the Zero Suicide Initiative? We do this survey every year. This is our second year of doing it. We scored pretty good the first year. We're scoring better this year. The difference is off to the far right in the highlighted yellow column. Pleased to say that on every indicator, we made improvement. Now the highest score you can get is 5. So if you're at 4.57, you know, it's going to be, you're not going to make great big jumps year to year, but you definitely don't want to see any places for decline. So most everyone in the agency has heard of the initiative. Those, when we drill down a little bit deeper, it's the newer employees who are still learning about it or haven't heard about it. So we just set up a program to work on that so that new employees are getting trained on zero suicide at the time of hire. Down underneath that, this one, something we're also working on, you know, for the clinicians that work with people that have somebody die by suicide, we want to make sure that we're supporting them. That's very traumatic. It's horrible. It can be a career ender for clinicians. So just making sure that we are reaching out to them and supporting them, we're supporting them well. The next several pages are around, are we providing training to the clinicians on screening, on assessment, on interventions that they can use when they're working with somebody who's at risk of suicide, on safety planning, because they're not going to be staying with us in our office the entire time, on transitions between levels of care. Pleased to say that we made improvement in all of those. Last year, again, was our first year. We did an intense amount of training this last year, focusing on three trainings: question, persuade, refer, CAMS, critical access to the management, critical assessment of the management of suicide, and then AMSR, assessing and managing suicide risk. All of our clinicians have had all 3 of those trainings in the last 12 months. And there was a nice improvement in their confidence level in working with folks on that, as well as in the implementation of it. For the screening, we use 2 surveys at every appointment. People have to take these 2 surveys. One is Columbia Suicide Severity Rating Index. It takes 30 seconds to complete. And the other is the PHQ-3 or the PHQ-9, also looking at depression. So before the clinician meets with the person, they already know how the person is doing that day with regards to depression. QPR, we are starting up a larger outreach campaign to try to get our community partners, including the schools, to take that. A lot of the schools have already taken the QPR training. It's a 2-hour training. It costs $30, and it's designed for just the general community to increase their awareness of those basic routine conversations that happen and their confidence level, and just basically, listening to a person for a few minutes and making a referral or encouraging them to go be seen. So we're working right now with the South Gilliam Health Center on getting all of their staff trained for that. And then we will take it farther out into the community. Any questions on Zero Suicide?
Questions for Kimberly?
We don't have any.
And then the last document, I think I provide this to you every time. It's the enrollment data, so you can see the numbers. The first page that for me printed in blue is all of CCS, Morrow, Wheeler, Gilliam, and Grant. Second page is in green, that's Wheeler County. Third page is a salmon gray, and that's Gilliam County. And then the last page is, we have to combine these due to low numbers. Gilliam and Wheeler, 65 and older, 2020 numbers compared to 2021 numbers. There was a small drop that we attributed to the pandemic, but for the most part, the numbers have came back up across the board. I like to point out that, I like to mention this periodically, that when we took over in 2008 at Gilliam County's request, there was 2 people enrolled in services. So we're a little bit busier. Yeah.
A lot busier, I would say.
The next document is a little bit more on Zero Suicide, but I think I'll wait. Just looking at the time and wanting to be thoughtful of other items on your agenda.
Kimberly, I did have a question on the training that you were talking about, that you're working with South Gilliam Health Center right now and then going out into the community. What does that, I mean, are you planning on doing, like community members could sign up to take that training, or how will that look when you sort of roll it out into the communities? Is it something you're looking for maybe employers to engage with, or what's kind of the rollout plan for that once the...
So, yes and yes and yes, and would like to hear your ideas. So we targeted 2 entities to take it to for that were specific to health for all of CCS. We wanted a larger one and a smaller one. So South Gilliam Health Center, which they agreed to do. They have needed to actually approach them about it last year, and they said yes, but the pandemic hit. So I've just been periodically, checking in. I think it's probably been a few months, but they've said they're still willing to do it. And then we targeted Blue Mountain Hospital in John Day. So the goal is with them is just, we'll pay for the training. We can provide it on site with Chris Humphreys, who is certified in QPR, or you can do it online. If it's on site, it's a 2-hour training. If it's online, it takes about an hour. Again, it costs $30. And we want to, at the end of it, our plan was to visit with them about what worked, what didn't work. How did you did it online or you did it in person? What were the challenges with that? And then to take that information and use it in deciding where to go next in Gilliam County. So what do you think? Like, would you as an employer be willing to say, yes, we would like our employees to do the QPR training? And then, I mean, actually right now I'm just like, if you're interested, let's just sign you up, period. You know, would you like Chris to do the in-person training? Would you like us to send you the link? Would you like to take it and send us the bill if you do it online? If we do it in person, you know, there's no cost for that. Or, you know, it's just something that like you wouldn't charge, or, you know, however you want it. Like, what do you think? Do you want to sign up?
My initial thought, and the commissioners may have thoughts as well, is that we definitely have several of our staff members who are regularly working with members of the public. You know, I'm thinking we've got senior services staff that is constantly interacting. Teddy's sitting here, she's got a lot of interactions through our family services. Even our librarians, you know, are interacting with the public regularly. And so I was maybe interested in, and that would be something I would maybe have Lisa in my office maybe work with you on figuring out what that would look like. But I don't know that we would necessarily mandate it for everybody, but I do think we've got quite a few touch points with the community that might be of value to give to our employees to have that tool. Amy Nation is another one working with a lot of our youth that she might be interested in that kind of thing. So I don't know that we would necessarily mandate it, but I definitely would be interested in giving our folks the option of doing that.
If they would like an in-person training, Chris Humphreys would love to do an in-person training. But again, if they want to do it online, we can send the link. They can keep the receipts, and you could send them to us, and we can reimburse the county. It's again, like I said, it's $30. I can email you, Elizabeth, the link. I mean, you can just type in QPR training and it comes up, but I'll email you the link as well. I do think that the in-person is slightly better just because of the dialogue that comes from the people that are taking the training. I mean, it really is just that rich. When I use that example of, you know, somebody wanders in looking for the mental health office and they're not there at the courthouse, and you send them down the street, and we just, you know, my mind can change 15 times from the time I make the decision to do something, and then I find out it was the wrong door, and then, you know, all right, I've got to do this, and I lose my spirit, I lose my motivation, you know, like all of it. Think about it like I'm going to stop eating chocolate. And I'm fine, and I'm fine, and I'm fine, and then I'm not fine. And, you know, and that's how our mind works, you know, it's crazy beautiful. And so, right, just providing those touches, as you say, those moments, and taking advantage of those can be so important. So, for example, instead of just saying, oh, you know, they're just down the street, does the person have the minute to pick up the phone and call Lisa? You know, like you guys opt in, you're going to have the cell phone numbers, or the numbers to the boardman office, you know, but could they say, hey, I'm going to send so-and-so down to you. They came to the wrong office. And if, let's say that was you, Elizabeth, who like waffling, I don't know if I want to go, okay, I get myself in, but now I'm at the wrong building. If I don't make that phone call, you know, I don't know 50-50 whether or not you're going to go. But if I make the phone call with you standing there and say, she's on her way, I just increase my odds of engagement with you by 90%. Because there's something to that verbal commitment that, yep, I'm going to go. And yep, I'll be waiting for you. So again, like that's the fun, good conversation that occurs with an in-person training.
Yeah, I think an in-person training makes some sense. So I think what I'll maybe go ahead.
Is there any way that could be tied to maybe some public interest? I'm not sure how to get that out, but I mean, employ lots of your clients. And I would say some at risk. And I would like to go to it. I mean, I don't know that there isn't other employers that would think that that might be a good idea.
Yeah, so maybe Kimberly, what we could do is I'll task Lisa to kind of coordinate, and maybe we could set up, if Chris would be willing to do maybe 2 in-person trainings, one at the north end and one at the south end.
Yep.
But maybe have a base of Gilliam County employees who are committing to be there so that Chris knows that there will be people there. But then we could advertise it as well for other employers who would like, or just people in off the street who might be
Well,
interested.
even
Right.
Justice Department's another touch.
Yeah,
Kimberly, does Chris have a capacity limit?
There is, and I can't remember what it is. But I will have that information by the time I hear from somebody.
okay, perfect.
Like, because I'm gonna leave this office and walk down the hall.
I'll have Lisa follow up then, and I think that would be great to get some stuff, some opportunities scheduled, and I like the in-person.
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense, and people will, I think, engage with the material more. Not only having an instructor, but having others in the room that can provide feedback too. I think that's a great.
Agreed. Yeah. Kudos to you. Yeah. That was really, candidly, it's kind of my hope. You know, the more we talk about it, the more information we can get out, the more engagement. And, you know, if it's just one life that we save, that's okay, because, like, you know, how, I don't know, I don't want to get biblical, I'm not overly Christian, but, you know, like, if you save 77, if you save 7, if you save 1, it's worth it.
Mhm.
It's worth it. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Okay. Excellent. Yay. You just made my day.
Kimberly,
Thank you.
any questions?
For me?
Any questions for Kimberly?
No.
This was great as
you
always.
so much.
I'm always astounded by how many services you guys provide. And I think it's a good reminder for, because folks usually watch us on YouTube later, of like, make sure that you're taking advantage of all of the services that CCS provides. We have local practitioners right in Condon and in Arlington. So take advantage of that. It's wonderful to have that in a community this small, I would say.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Happy to do what we do. Love it. And yeah, thank you.
And I do know a lot about what you do, but I would like to have a conversation someday when it fits you.
Sure. I can send you an email, and then you'll have my email, and maybe you could give me a good contact number and we could schedule a time to meet.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Kimberly.
Great. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. That was great. I think that training will be
Yeah.
excellent.
How
So,
about a break?
yes, let's take,
Us old
it
people.
is 11:13, and I would actually like to read this agreement. So why don't we say 11:20?
Okay.
Does that work?
Mhm.
7 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, so we will do a quick recess and be back at 11:20. 11:20, and we are back in session. Let's go
Oh, they've got less
into,
than that.
so let's go into the Caithness Road Maintenance Agreement, which we added as 6.1A. Cap.
So I guess think this needs to go to legal.
Yes.
Mhm.
And get a completed document back this time instead of suggestions in an email. Get
Right.
Something that we can sign
Yeah.
that,
And yeah.
I
that's
think it's,
correct.
I mean, when I looked at it, I didn't see any real problems with it. It's just needs to be a completed document, and we need to review it since they went through ours and
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I think if we could send it back to legal and just have them review it for us.
And spell Sherry's name right and add me.
And
And
add
take
you
Leslie off, because Leslie's on there, she's just on
Mhm.
she's on the
the next
page.
page.
They didn't do their page breaks very well.
So yeah, I
Page
mean,
5.
so Pat, if you don't mind following up with legal counsel and having her,
And that is the same legal counsel that did the. That's who we want to go to.
I mean, you can send
Road
it,
maintenance.
it can either go to Christy or to Jeremy, who's in Bend. The one thing I've noticed is that I think Jeremy sometimes gets more backed up and it takes a little longer.
Yeah.
So it just depends on how quickly you need it. You
Okay.
want to have it turned around.
Okay.
But it could go to either.
Well, it looks like they're kind of wanting to get started doing some activity in the latter part of May or June, so.
Okay, so we'll get it back from legal and then put it back on the agenda when you hear back from them.
Okay.
How about we move into the application for activities in the Gilliam County right away from Sterling and Wilson Solar Solutions.
Now, this is a right of way with the contractor for the solar project, which my understanding is we've already done a right of way with Avenue. Not sure that we need this since we got one, but it's probably just, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having it. And Dewey's already signed it.
And then I usually sign them too.
It's got a place for the judge or commissioner in the back.
I mean, I don't have any
Yeah, I think it's
concerns
fine.
with this one. Do you have any?
I do not.
Get it done.
So I would move to approve the application for activities in the Gilliam County right away from Sterling and Wilson Solar Solutions.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the application for activities in the Gilliam County rights away from Sterling and Wilson Solar Solutions Incorporated. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Got that. Let's catch up here. We'll go into 6.2, which is discuss changes to summer youth work experience program. And Teddy is here. Teddy, do you want to come up and sit up here so the camera can capture you? It's always
Yay.
fun. Nobody wants that either.
It's just a microphone.
Just what you wanted.
So I'll just kind of kick it off and say that this started at my suggestion, really, when we looked at the summer youth work experience program last summer. I had more of a opportunity to be a little bit more hands-on with it last summer. And one of the things that struck me dealing with, how many kids did we have? Like
38-ish.
38 last summer, is it is administratively, I think the technical term would be a nightmare.
That's the technical term.
In that for each of those kids, basically the way it's been managed is each of those kids is treated as a Gilliam County employee. So Teddy gets all of their paperwork together, finds all of the employers, then they're run through our payroll system, which means every pay period, Teddy's having to track down timesheets from teenagers, which is fun, and making sure all of their I-9s and employment paperwork is complete. And the challenge that we found, especially with, say, the timesheets, is we've got kids who are like, sometimes they're showing up to work, sometimes they're not that day. Teddy's having to run all over trying to track down kids so that Ellen can get them paid on time when she's processing. Because we are a PERS employer, Ellen's running them in and out of our PERS system, in and out of all of our benefits. It seemed like administratively we could look at doing some changes. The other thing that has come up is some of our kids, some of our employers have come back to us and said, hey, this has really worked out. I'd like to continue to employ this youth beyond the 200 hours. Can I do that? Under our bully certificate, no, because they have to be employed by us. So a business can't then say, okay, I'm going to, under your bully certificate, now employ for an extra 3 weeks before the end of the summer, they're not able to do that. And so one of the things that we're exploring and would like some feedback on is making this more of a partnership. So having the county provide obviously all of the funding to cover the full costs, including, you know, workers' comp, all of those kinds of things, in addition to the actual wages for the kids. Doing the recruitment of the kids. I think we would still be doing that, figuring out who's interested, doing the recruitment of the businesses, making sure, and helping connect the two. But we would be asking the employer to obtain their own bully certificate, which I looked online, and it's a 2-page document that I think the first page of which is the business name, location, phone, it's contact information. And the second page is really like how many kids, what kind of work they're going to be doing, and what location. So it's not a heavy lift. I'm guessing for most people, it's a 15 to 20 minute application that can be done online. And once it's filed, the renewal is just basically like, did anything change? Which I think is probably maybe a 5 or 10 minute commitment from our employers. The kids would then run through that individual business's payroll. So that would be a change. But again, what we were balancing is for an employer who maybe has 1 or 2 kids, you're talking about running 1 or 2 kids through your payroll, as opposed to the county running 33, 38 kids through and having to compile all of the paperwork, for all of those kids. It just seemed like if we can share the work a little bit, understanding that the county is still going to financially back it fully, that maybe this is a way to have it be more of a partnership and administratively a better use of county resources.
It sounds a lot cleaner to me to do it that way. What is your feeling, Teddy?
You know, we were all looking at it as a group of my supervisors and I, you know, the spirit of continual improvement strategies for the county, for my program, for me, whatever, being able to just use a better use of all of our time. I look at it as that it is a better use of time for Ellen, especially. I know it's very time burdensome, I guess is the word, you know, like she said, it's a nightmare, but you know, we've been able to do it in the past, at least 10 years that I've been working with it, but this would make it more efficient.
Yeah, I think efficient's a very good word. The efficiency level is.
I also have a little context for you, having been involved in it fairly substantially as well last year, that obviously you're dealing with teenagers, and we all know that that isn't necessarily following the normal employment routines.
Yeah.
And so when you have a teenager who for whatever reason is unable to show for work, the way it has to happen at the moment is they have to call into the county, who's technically the employer, if they remember to call in. And then we have to get a hold of the actual place of employment where they're doing their work. Or what happens is they just no show, as can happen with teenagers. And then the employer calls us and says, hey, where's Joe today? I haven't seen him. And then we have to like get Joe out of bed who forgot to set his alarm clock or something. And so there's all that
whole middleman thing
that has to happen, kind of like a telephone game to figure out. And it can sink your entire morning just troubleshooting where 2 or 3 missing youth employees are. And that falls onto Teddy a lot of the time too.
So being the negative one in the room. I will
That's okay.
offer up that I don't think it's a potential conflict, but I've been involved in the program.
Right.
So I mean, it's not a financial impact in one way or the other to me, other than I think it's a costly program for employees as it's set up today. And I've always approached the program as something I'm doing for the youth in the community. But I'm not going to participate in the program if I got to put on my own payroll for a number of reasons. And one is it's going to increase my workers' comp expense. It's going to increase my payroll expense because I run everything through a payroll company. And based on hours and time, that'll all increase. And I guess for me, it's the same reason. It's I'm busy and I'm just not going to do that. I mean, it's just not something that, for me, the county needs to make a decision on whether they want to support the youth. We've got a community, I think we don't have enough for kids to do. And this is something that kind of helps. And do we want to put enough of a priority? And it's worked for a long time, the way it's set up. And we want to make that a priority in our county, that we're going to put what it takes to put in to keep the, I think it'll die if we change it, based on a few of the conversations I've had. And I just know for me, to take on extra work with it when, I mean, I can give you some specific examples. We don't get normally great employees. We get few. And I always have taken it that I make them call me to set up the schedule. And I make them go through some stuff that I think is beneficial for them as they grow up and move into the workplace someday. Try to give them some guidance. And I've always approached it from a way, this is something we're doing for them to lead them into life.
Yeah.
And I've had things happen, like I had a Saddlebronc picture of 1979 from Ellensburg hanging in the wall, and one of the better employees I had decided to clean up in the dining room wall and wiped it off with a wet rag and run the picture and never get back. You know? So they have to be supervised closely, so it ties up other employees supervising. There's a lot of things they can't do. It takes a lot of supervision and guidance. So I just felt like it's more of an impact on my business than it is a benefit. And it's not that I get an extra free employee, because I don't. It ties up employees I've already got.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question was,
Yeah.
you know, I know you struggle to find employees, but for you, you don't feel like it's an addition to your
It's not in
employment.
addition
It's
to the
more,
staff. Sometimes it's running around, telling them, you know, you need to get out of the chair and do something. Tell them what they should be doing. I mean, it's just a lot of supervision. And you know, a lot of these kids have never held any kind of a job at all ever before. So you're really working with the hardest workforce you can work with.
is there a compromise? You know, I'm for this because I do take.
I see the impact on the county and what it is, but I think we've got we have a big county nucleus here to handle projects or programs like this. And so,
But is there a compromise where some of the things you indicate are an issue, like collecting the time cards and the calling?
yeah,
in
I don't
and-
understand, just from my side, I don't understand the sick leave deal. I always worked that out with the employees. They let me know when they're not gonna be there, if they're not there. And I turn the time cards in. They tell me what time and where. I fill out the time cards. I turn them at the end of the month.
But
But
apparently all
I
the
didn't
other
understand
businesses
this
aren't
other
doing that.
reporting that other,
Not
Kids are
all
doing it.
businesses are the same, and they do not all do that or have that instruction with the youth necessarily.
But can we
I
make that a
guess I've tried to
requirement?
treat them like an employee. And they're responsible to do those things any of my other employees would do.
Yeah.
So it's been part of the training process, I think, for them, and I haven't just said, well, you work for the county, you know, the county needs to deal with it. Maybe other employers do, I don't know.
Yeah, can't there be more stricter rules for the businesses
And the
to follow?
bully
Like,
deal is no
you
big deal,
collect
it's not an
the-
issue.
you collect the time card, they call into you, you let us know if they've called into you, rather than having to make us be the middleman so much. Because I see where that is a total issue.
We can do that.
Can we take some of these issues and,
We'll either end up chasing youth or chasing the business.
well, they should
Because I
have
know
to sign
Teresa
a
did a lot of that
contract. Do
last
they
year.
sign a contract? Does
The business
sign
or
a
the
contract
youth?
with the county? No, the business.
The businesses do sign a little two-page contract, basically. I didn't bring one because I didn't think about that, but it's basically the understanding that we are providing the youth and you are providing the opportunity for the youth to learn for
And
the
it-
summer. And it
also
says
is
how
meant-
many hours that we're going to be able to provide.
And it includes the BOLI requirements on what they can and can't do.
Yeah,
depending on
yeah.
What age
It's
they
on
are.
Right.
regulations.
Right.
Yes.
So what if we, I mean, I'm gonna just throw this out as I understand your concerns, Pat. But I wonder if there's a way with over time, we could maybe transition. So rather than do like a clean, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
What if we structured and offered incentive to businesses who decided to take it on themselves? So we would definitely cover the cost to add them. You know, you were saying like it runs through a payroll system. So I would anticipate that the county would cover that piece, that extra cost to you. But I wonder if there's a way to sort of transition so that a few businesses can, if they want to continue to do sort of the old way, that we do more of a transition time for them is what I'm suggesting. Because I mean, I understand everything you're saying. I mean, the other concern that I have, frankly, is that technically they are our employees, but they are not supervised by Gilliam County, which means if an employer violates our BOLI,
Then we're liable.
then we are liable.
No, I understand
So
that
if a
too.
kid runs something they shouldn't and
Gets hurt.
hurts themselves, it's our workers' comp that pays for it. Which I don't have a problem with our kids that are here that are being supervised by our people, because our people understand what the expectation is. But I do have some concerns about, especially with this age group, the risk that we assume. And so, but I am open to maybe having this be a transition period where maybe we work with a few businesses to start transitioning, and we can identify some of those concerns that you're raising and see if there's some creative ways that we could sort of address it.
You do understand that when you get into workers' comp, that you now put the risk on the businesses who have now employees that are at the highest risk. And when one employee has one injury, your insurance goes up across the board. I mean, we all get that. And I'm not willing to take that risk. I mean, that's just, as a business, it's, we've been 7 years without a workers' comp. And that's where it'll come from.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I understand, it's just the business has the same concerns. And another just outside concern for me, and you have to be in the business that fits that model, but at the state level and requirements for state level for employees that require sick leaves. I'm in the restaurant business and I can't afford to pay all the employees sick leave all the time, give them a day or whatever. I don't even know what it is. So once you hit that threshold, which I run right at it, most of the time we don't have enough employees now, so we're below that. Then when we hit 10 employees, there you go, kicks you over that. Now you have to hit that for, I don't remember what it is, for a while. You have to go for a while,
But that's what I'm saying is if there are those kinds of things that are considerations that we did not consider, because we were approaching this more of a streamlining of county operations, then is there a middle ground? Could we pilot it with, say, I don't know, 10 businesses this year?
Yeah, I think that that's probably a good way to approach it, and then you'll at least find, because I don't, up here, I don't know, maybe they want to jump in and do it. I don't know.
I think you're right. I think it'll depend on the business.
But I do
And
know
what kind of work they're
that
doing.
it's gonna, whoever it is gonna take on some, extra work or potential problems that could come up.
How much do you work directly with the businesses? Besides just placing
Make sure
them?
the timesheets are in.
So, I mean, it's fairly closely with the business. So each year I have to find out who wants to have a youth place there. Then I have to go and meet with somebody, whoever it is, the person in charge, to get that contract, kind of talk about what the age group of person is, and sometimes they might want, say, a 17-year-old, but I only have 15-year-olds that apply, so I can't
Right.
absolutely guarantee that they will get that, because we don't have
Yeah.
that
Your
many
pool isn't,
kids,
right.
you know, in that many age groups, but, you know, so I've, for instance, had to go down and meet with Pat, make sure what he's looking for, try to get him those youth age groups or whatever that would accommodate that. And then talk with them each month, whether it's me going in there and picking up timesheets, or whether it was making sure that I was getting something scanned and sent to me by email. So it was a little bit of communication there, you know, each month, but other than that, and just, you know, hey, stop by, check in, I wasn't going and double checking every time to say, you know, are they following all the bully rules? And I mean, I didn't just walk in and do like a check sheet of anything like that. Just maybe stop in and say, hi, how's it going? Check on the kids, see if they're working.
Is there an easier way to do that specific time card where there's something that's in our system that's, here's your time card, and you, every day you need to put your hours in, and then you have those at the end of the month?
We're doing now, it's all paper. We just fax it in for email.
Yeah, we all use the same time card that Gilliam County uses. And so I give them a copy of that, you know, for each kid. Some businesses make it the kid's responsibility, and some say, well, it's sort of their responsibility, I'll work with them on it. And some say, you know, I'm just going to keep the time card. So it kind of is all over the board there on, but usually it's working with a manager or whoever to make sure that I get that. So if I don't have something from Pat, then I would directly call him. Or if I didn't have something from, say, the Arlington Hardware, I would directly call Marta and say, you know, what happened there.
Yeah.
So I have,
Go ahead.
you know, I was going to say, I have that specific contact, whoever's in charge, that's who I would call. I wouldn't call the youth.
Right.
But
One thing on the workers' comp side, I don't know how you would track the expense, because normally you do that off of a report at the end of the year, and they make an adjustment. And, you know, it's all on hours and time. And I mean, I don't even know how you, and you're not, you know, even my payroll company, I don't know how their billing is. I get a bill for so much a month, and for workers' comp, I get a bill for so much a month. It's not like this employee cost me this much money.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm thinking, is maybe for those who piloted this year, we could, after they get those adjustments, we could take a look at what that costs, and then we just factor into that, the budget for next year, and sort of do an average, you know, on average, it raises the employer's cost by $200, $500, you know, whatever that number ends up being.
Well, and for those who want to use the old way, is there some way we can make these things that are all over the place more the same, where everybody has to turn their time card in, it has to be on a specific day?
well, that is the way it is.
So
right
why
now.
are you having to make these phone calls? Because people just aren't doing their job?
Because human behavior.
Because they're just not doing it.
Sometimes, yeah, you get a kid that doesn't make to work that week, but their time cards do.
They
And there's
have to be
another part
signed.
That's a little bit of an issue with the county time card, is that you have to estimate when you're gonna have them at the end of the month, because the time cards are due before they've actually finished their month. And estimate the time, and that makes a little bit.
And getting the signatures sometimes ends up being one of the reasons that you're calling around to somebody, because Ellen wants a signed timesheet. She doesn't want a timesheet turned in from you that says that she worked only so much, but she didn't sign it. So we don't know if she's agreeing to that.
It's amazing how many doctor's appointments these kids have.
Yeah.
For being young and healthy, they aren't.
Well, one of the things that, just like you're saying, is maybe I could suggest. I honestly don't know at this point how many of the businesses are saying that it's going to be a problem for them or that it's not. I have not heard back from everybody. You know, we just recently sent out a letter saying, here's what we think that we would like to do, but I've heard now from 2 places that are saying that it could be a problem for them or that they wouldn't want to participate.
So how about this? How about we get a lay of the land? So how
Yes.
about if Teddy could, this is going to be time consuming, but I think it would be worth it to have
Mhm.
Teddy follow up with each of the businesses and ask, sort of walk through what the proposed new thing would look like and see how many just flat out say, no way. Or how many say, I could, but this, and this would need to be addressed. You know, like I need you to be able to cover my increased costs for workers' comp, or, you know, whatever that is, whatever those questions come back. Kind of compile them and figure out what the landscape looks like. And so I think based on that, if we've got every single business saying no way, then we obviously need to recalibrate.
Or if there's 2 out of 20.
Well, I think it's an
that-
important
I mean,
program. We need to figure out how to.
Yeah, but just because it's been done this way for
So-
the last 30 years, doesn't mean that it doesn't need
Well, I
improvement.
understand
Right.
that back.
But
Here.
one of the, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. I was gonna say, one of the things that I was thinking is, say we got 2 out of 20 that says no, because, and for his example, I go through, you know, a payroll company and here's what happens and blah, blah, blah. So if there's others that are saying, well, I would like to get my own BOLI certificate and I'll take the lump sum of 200 hours for the kid. And then that way I can employ them afterwards. If we could just work with that, maybe that one that way, or those 5 that we might have or something. And just kind of,
Yeah, really.
Fluctuate. I don't know,
Kids
just-
you've got to put out there and how many businesses want it. I mean, that's-
Right.
right,
Well, and that also gives the example of this company did it this way. And, you know, this is the impact that it had on them,
right.
whether it's good or bad or some of each. Then we at least have an example of what.
Yeah, I don't know. You may have enough businesses willing to do it that cover the kids you get.
True.
So why don't we do this? Before we make a final, everybody's doing.
Yeah.
Let's get a lay of the land. Let's see
Okay.
how many businesses this would impact negatively, where they would just all out not participate. See how many kids we have, because if all of the businesses that say yes would cover all of the kids.
Right, it's good to go.
Then it's not an issue.
Mhm.
Right? But if there's overlap, and I suspect based on last year, there's gonna be more kids than, we had a hard time getting everybody placed last year. So it would not surprise me if we end up with that again, especially with COVID. I think kids were stepping in to help families even make ends meet. So, but then that way we know what we're dealing with. And then we can troubleshoot. If we have every business saying no, then we would probably need to stick with the old way of doing it. If we have
But
sort
I think
of,
there's improvements that can be made to the old way as well.
Well,
That's one thing
sure,
I'm saying
sure,
is,
yeah.
and if that happens, then we need to analyze how it is more efficient.
if it's 50-50, we'll kind of figure it out. If the majority say, I'm actually okay with the new system, then maybe we get creative on how we get kids placed with those who aren't willing to try the new system or are unable to do the new system. But I think maybe more data would be helpful.
Yes, definitely. More,
I would
we,
concur.
to me, we need more feedback from the businesses. I've seen two.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anybody say, yeah, I don't have a problem with it. I've had one person say absolutely not, and one that says, you know,
I've got these
maybe
concerns.
there are ways we could work through,
Well, I've
but
had
these are my
two or
concerns.
three others say yes, that they want a youth and that they will work with
And they
it.
were willing to make the
Okay.
changes. Okay. go
So
ahead.
let's get a lay of the land, and then let's plan on putting it back on, if we can collect that data before the next meeting. And then kind of just update the court on, here's the number of businesses that I said, yes, I'm totally on board with the new system. Here's the number that say, absolutely not, I'll only work with you under the old system.
And this
then-
is an estimate of how many,
Yeah,
Kids
I don't
we
know,
have.
when are the kids supposed to be submitting?
Well, we
Interest.
were gonna get that figured out here just soon.
Program doesn't start till the 1st of July, right?
Right,
yeah, 'cause
for
school
this
isn't
year,
out until-
a lot of times I've had
Mid-June.
where they could work in June, but this year I don't have the budget for that.
And it also sounds like.
Well, there's plenty of
sports
time if it
schedules,
starts
the 1st
of July,
there's-
because
over.
normally you'll go through those hours, early
Right, right.
August, you're through the hours.
Yeah, they have plenty of time to complete it, so it would be July and August.
Yeah, and Lisa was just saying, I think somebody had mentioned yesterday that
Sports might be
basketball is
through
going
June,
through
yeah.
June.
Yeah,
and some other
Running
stuff,
along this
so.
year 'cause of COVID.
So.
Okay, so I think get us a lay of the land. And then based on the feedback that we get from employers, we'll figure out how to
Approach.
approach
Okay.
it. Does that work for you, Pat?
That's good. I
Okay,
like it.
all right. Thank you.
Thanks, Teddy.
And if we end up with the old system, we do need to figure out a way to
Some improvements on how it's
streamline.
efficiently run.
Because it is, and I would like to see, I mean, one of the things I was hoping for is by freeing up some of the administrative time for Teddy, I mean, one of the things I think we could be looking at is maybe offering, and Teddy may do some of this already, but I'm thinking like some of our, to your point about Pat, some of these kids, it's their first job,
Mhm.
is having some of those maybe group teaching opportunities to have, and maybe that's community members that have an opportunity to come in and talk about like, as somebody who is a manager, as a former manager, here's what I'm looking for. Here's how you build a resume.
Right?
You know, some of those like core things that
And
maybe
I,
we don't put on the employer, but we have.
well, I have a work ethics training and talks about resumes and all kinds of.
Now, the
Yeah,
more you can put in
all
a
kinds of stuff.
Right?
program like that, the more you're gonna get out of it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
but I was
That should be the
thinking,
goal.
yeah,
Yes,
and
definitely.
I knew
Trying
that
to
you
teach them
did-
how to-
It hasn't happened every
Survive in the
single
workplace.
solitary year, but we tried to make it happen before the kids went to the employers.
Mhm.
but I'm wondering if maybe something we look at doing as an improvement to the program is sort of expanding that and inviting beyond just you having
Yeah,
more
yeah.
voices at the table. So whether it's retired people who want to give an hour to come talk about how they used to hire and what they look for, and, you know, even talking to kids about what are important things that you need to be doing sort of in the off season, but like what makes you what other skills do you need to be developing?
I'd be happy to speak.
You know, yeah, those kinds of things. So that's something that I'm hoping we can maybe.
I've got all kinds of thoughts running through my head, so, yeah.
And I
When
think,
when you get some of these kids that, they don't even socially know how to
Interact with,
interact with other
Other-
people or
Right.
employees or their boss, you know?
Mhm.
right?
So it's really an adventure.
I would like to see, for instance, because one of the things that doesn't happen under this program, and I think might be a little bit cumbersome to try to do with each individual business, but I would love, for instance, to set up mock interviews where we had
That would
some
be fun.
volunteers
Yeah.
that are willing to spend a couple of hours in an afternoon and just have kids coming in and
Bringing the
practicing,
resume and.
you know, practicing, even though it's not going to be necessarily who they're placed with within the community, because I think that might be a heavy lift for
Right.
the business owners necessarily.
But that is a really good,
I bet we could get some volunteers who are willing to do that
Yeah.
for us. So just those kinds of things. And so part of my hope is that if we can streamline the administrative, just paperwork side of things, that might open up some capacity to be able to do some more training and those sorts of things for the youth. So,
Sounds good.
all right.
Okay.
Thanks, Teddy.
Yeah.
Let's go into 6.3, discuss congressionally directed spending requests. So this one, I just basically wanted to touch base, as you guys were both on the email, so you were already aware of this, but Congress is allowing us to request earmarks,
Yes.
congressionally directed spending items.
That's fine.
It's totally fun. So Senator Merkley's office was the one that originally reached out to us, because I believe Senator Merkley sits on one of the appropriations committees. So that is why I think they're kind of taking the lead. But it would be we'd be making requests of both senators, and then they would obviously be prioritizing throughout the state. So what I wanted feedback on, I mean, obviously, I think anytime people say, hey, do you want money? We should probably raise our hands and say yes.
Yes. Definitely.
But I wanted feedback on what projects you guys wanted me to, I made the assumption you wanted me to take the lead in submitting them. And so
Yes, please.
unless one of you wants to do it,
No, that's cool.
and which projects you wanted to
I thought it
submit.
was kind of disappointing that their numbers were 50 to 500,000 for the project. But they did say maybe a few 1.2. We need to put something down for Painted Hills.
Okay,
That would be really good, yes.
let me.
Well, and I wondered if,
It needs to be everything we can get.
right, and in relation to Painted Hills, could part of the cost of improving Airport Road be part of that as well?
I think
Because
that
it needs to be straightened and paved and. Yeah,
I'm guessing what they're gonna tell us is that the earmark can probably not go to a private business, is what I'm gonna guess. I don't know that for sure, but that is a guess.
So how are you gonna earmark? I mean, is it just gotta go to a nonprofit?
It would have to go to us probably. So,
something like project accounting.
City.
but what we could look at doing, to Sherry's point on Airport Road, is if Painted Hills has some needs from an infrastructure standpoint in order to be able to build there. So if the road needs to be improved, we could ask for the earmark as a infrastructure investment
Right.
that also benefits Painted Hills, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Is it possible to use the airbase road improvement as a infrastructure improvement as well? Because we're partnering for additional housing. Can we put something in there for housing? What would we do with money if they gave us money for housing? What would I had someone ask me if the county had any property in the Arlington city limits that would be, or, something where we could build fourplex, something like that. And my understanding from the assessor is, but I don't know. These are just thoughts going through my mind that I'm throwing out there.
If we had the discussion with Columbia Gorge a little bit further along, that one might be
Oh, that might be a good one.
interesting
Yeah, right.
project.
Yeah, throw money at that program.
I can touch base with Dan to see if there's an interest in maybe submitting something jointly. Would you like me to submit fiber?
Oh, definitely, yeah. The more money we can get. I was at a very rural home last night, and There was a lot of sadness when we were talking about some documentaries that we've been watching that they're unable to access just because they have no.
Nothing there.
Yeah, they have no broadband, no fiber.
Yeah, and we're starting to talk about what to do with downtown Arlington, but it's so preliminary. I'm doing a presentation for the,
So is this just
Council
money coming
today.
to the counties, or did they reach out to other public entities with these monies?
I believe, is Catherine on there?
She is.
Hey, Catherine, did the cities get this request as well? She might be doing other things.
Nope, she's unmuted.
There she is.
Sorry. We did get it. I'm not sure if we were putting something in. I saw that they were going to do some, I mean, we're always thinking housing, but
Well, I'm thinking your streets as well, that goes with the housing, because,
well, I know Arlington's got a sewage plant deal too that's gonna come up and hit it, but I don't know what the numbers are or anything on that.
so I missed the first part of your discussion is what have you been hearing at the county court? Because all I've gotten is just, hey, get your list together. And I guess I'm concerned with if we get our list together and it's what are the chances of giving $1 million to the little city of Condon for houses when they have 50,000 homeless people somewhere else that they really need some sort of housing? I mean, what
or to fix our
are we
swimming
looking
pool,
at of filling this out and getting this money?
right?
So I'm thinking, in terms of prioritization, my recommendation for our court would be that we look at maybe 2 or 3 projects realistically.
Yes.
I think Congress is eager to fund broadband, so I would suggest making that one of the 3
Yes.
or 2 or 3, depending on
Right.
what you guys think. To support the Painted Hills project, if we tackled, are they far enough along
I mean,
that there's
I
something we
think
could
Jeff
support?
has gotten the port some, I don't know how, I'll find out, but I think he's gotten them some information on the cost of the building. But I don't know.
I
how
know
far
Gabrielle
along.
had said that
I
they
know
were
that,
meeting with the port again,
well,
so
the port.
I don't know what
The
came out of that
port's
deal.
new Peters replacement started Monday.
Mm.
So, and I'm meeting with them tomorrow, or next Wednesday at 10.
And who is his replacement?
His name is Jeff Dans.
Is he local?
He's moved here recently, I think, but his wife is the community
Counselor?
counseling solutions person in Arlington.
Oh, was he at one of our
Yes,
meetings?
he was at the
Sat in
Grumpuss
the back?
building.
He's been
port
popping in some meetings
meeting,
here and
yeah.
there.
Okay. So could we?
So I guess
Go ahead, Catherine.
I missed part of the discussion and I apologize. So you were talking about Painted Hills, and I know their project is, I think, up at the Mesa or down, right?
Yeah.
So, and Pat, you just said the port was going to discuss, they were going to have another discussion at this meeting, but I just pulled up their agenda and there's nothing on that. So,
Oh, I didn't say that.
oh, didn't you? I thought you said, okay. Well, I did notice in their meetings in March, when I was at the meeting, they were going to have Painted Hills come in. So I guess,
Yeah, they were in. I didn't go to that meeting because I had a conflict. But they, I think at their last meeting, Painted Hills did a presentation, or they were there, I think. Last or the one before, I'm not sure.
I mean, that's great. That'd be a great thing. It's just that if it hasn't been on the agendas for a while, because it wasn't on the March agenda when I was there, and I didn't see it on last month's agenda either for them. So
what we were talking about, Catherine, that you might have missed is, I don't think that Congress would probably allow us to ask for a private entity. But if there was some infrastructure at the Mesa that would help help Painted Hills, that maybe we could, so for instance, if we need to improve the road, or if we need to, I don't know,
Well, I think
if
that
there's utilities up
I've
there that we
heard-
need to extend or,
I heard from, I think Dewey was at 250,000 just to finish the road from what he's going to pave to where this project would go.
okay.
Yeah, it's not gonna be cheap,
No,
So,
and it needs to be done right the first time, not just cobbled together.
so what if we, because these two seem further along, I'm not sure the air-based road would get much traction, especially since it's not a county road. And I would love to submit our project with Columbia Gorge, but I'm not sure that we're far enough along to be able to do that. Although I might suggest to Dan that they should go after a congressional earmark for their facility.
There you go.
So how about we submit 2 projects and I can work with Dewey on getting cost estimates put together for the airport road. And then submitting our fiber and broadband, and that would be our 2 asks
I'm
then.
good with that.
Yeah, I like it.
Does that work?
Yes.
Okay, so
And I see that it was due this Friday, but they've extended it to
extended
the
it.
14th. So.
thank goodness.
Yeah, I don't know how they thought people were gonna have a meeting and come up with something.
So I think we'll submit those 2. And then that's good practice for us too, because this will be
Yes.
the first one we've submitted,
Yes.
because it's the first time they've had earmarks. It's a nice thing.
So can I just ask, what is the probability of the city of Condon? I'm thinking it's going to stand more ground if it's the county or regional than it is if it's just us. Is the city of Arlington got some asks, or does Sherman, Gilliam, and Wheeler have a potential ask that's the same? I guess I just want to know if I should fill out the paperwork, because I've done this a lot and it's just such a small project that they're usually like, it doesn't cover enough. It doesn't have enough significance to get done. So,
Well, if they're talking about funding from 50 to 500,000, that makes for a pretty small project.
I agree.
And it never
So-
hurts to ask.
And why not ask?
Yeah, never.
We'll
hurts
go
to-
ahead and put something in for housing. We'll talk about it tonight at council, but I just didn't know if there was anything that you guys have heard through your sources about this earmark that hasn't been just an ask. Okay.
Not yet. You might, one way you might approach it, Kat, because I'm not sure how eager they're gonna be to actually funding like housing itself, like the actual structures, but I wonder if you guys were putting in water and sewer to your development out at the golf course, like maybe that might be a good ask, is to have
Yeah.
that.
And that's what we would ask for, because at this point, we wouldn't be asking for actual structures. It would be all the infrastructure. So,
Yeah.
okay, I'll just go ahead and put something in, because we have some preliminary figures on that.
Yeah, I would think that would be something that would resonate with them, definitely.
They're all about infrastructure. That's
Right,
the buzzword right
right.
now, so. Okay, well, I think I've got my marching orders. I will get those submitted, and then we can all call our congressman and say, please
Right?
fund us,
Yeah.
send some money home. Okay, anything further on that?
I don't have anything.
All right, let's go into 7.0, which is announcements and next meeting. So the next regular meeting is May 19th, and we'll be here in Condon. I also wanted to note that the Budget Committee met on Monday. Our next meeting will be on the 10th at 8 a.m. here in the courthouse, and there is also a Zoom link for people who want to do that. For those who are interested, this is the meeting where we typically go through the applications for the competitive grants. So if you are one of those entities that applied and you would like to watch the deliberations and or be available to answer questions on your application as they come up, then you are welcome. This is a public meeting, and so all are welcome to attend and participate. Pat. We'll start with you. What do you got going on?
I will have a North Central Public Health meeting next Tuesday, which they did not have a board meeting in April. And we've had 2 meetings regarding the recruiting for an executive director. And meeting with the new Peter's replacement. I'm not sure what that title is. Next
Board
Wednesday.
director, executive director, yeah.
Next Wednesday. And other than the budget meeting, I think that's gonna come. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Sherry,
Okay.
It's my turn. Tomorrow, Congressman DeFazio and the AOC is having an AOC town hall, but from noon to 1, and I was going to listen in on that. Of course, the budget meeting. Oh, it's on my calendar twice. Yeah. Only gonna come once. Korea has a meeting on Friday the 14th that I intended to listen in on as well. Not necessarily participating, but listening. And looking forward to our economic development work session on the 19th. And I do hope people that are interested in that as well will participate, because we're looking for good feedback. Let's see where are we in the calendar here? The 20th is Norcor. 21st is Capco. And then whatever else falls in there.
So on the economic development, did we decided the 19th, but did we decide a time?
No,
thought-
we have not decided.
Oh, no, I did that myself. You said in the after our meeting.
Yes,
Not in the
I was
morning.
thinking
I
so
had put
that,
8
so
o'clock.
that we're not sandwiched in before court, that we would do it in
Sounds
the
good.
afternoon.
Sounds good.
Does that work for you, Pat?
Estimated for 1 or something and see where we're at.
Yeah.
Does that
yeah.
work for you?
Oh, I think that's good. Set it for 1 and then we can take a break and
Okay,
come back and spend 2 or 3 hours.
okay, so we'll set it, we'll have the executive session at 12:30 again, so depending on how long that goes, I think we'll probably just notice it to immediately follow
Okay.
Executive session.
the executive session, and then if the executive session takes an hour, then we'll start at 1:30 or whatever it is.
Okay.
What documentation, commissioners, how would you like to structure that discussion?
Well, I
It's the
think
big
we need to look
question.
at the strategic plan, be part of it.
Okay,
And I haven't done it. I've got the old strategic plan I need to do. I was gonna look at both, but we'll do some comparisons. I mean, I think it's really about discussion. We don't have, it's where we headed and have to start talking about what we're
Yeah,
gonna do. with
what
economic
does that look
development in
like?
general. I
Yeah,
don't know that there's a lot of documentation out there to be had.
okay.
right.
Okay, so what we can do is, we can send around the adopted 2021 to 2025 or 26, whatever it ended up being, the 5-year one that the 3 of us, the previous court did. Sherry, would you like to see the old one?
I have it.
You have it, okay. And then maybe what we could do is at least, how about this as a way to approach it? How about we walk through the one that's currently adopted? And see if there are additional things that we want to add to it or edit in
Right.
some way. Because I think where the disconnect is coming from, because I've heard from some community members too that say, gosh, it's kind of a light strategic plan, you know, here's a,
We want you to read between the lines, I think.
Yeah. But my thought process had always been, for instance, you know, one of the items on there is fiber, right?
Mhm.
Broadband. And so when I had thought about this process was the idea that the court identified it as, this is the strategic goal. And then step 2, as you work on that, is to say, okay, we're working on fiber. How do we make this happen? And rather than have that live in the larger the strategic plan document, because my concern is, as we found already, if we had like housing is a great example. Housing was on there is on there as one of our strategic goals. And then we have Columbia Gorge show up 4 months later and tell us, hey, we're doing the skills center, and yes, we could build homes. And so had the previous court tried to lay out how are we going to accomplish housing, we would have never envisioned a potential partnership with Columbia Gorge, right? And so kind of how I had envisioned it, and maybe you guys would see it differently, was that you have these broad brush stroke goals that then you're able to fill in afterwards. So we come back later and say, okay, we're getting our consultant together for fiber, and we're going to walk through how do we actually deploy that. Now that we've made it a strategic goal, here's the nitty gritty details that come underneath it.
Is there a statute or a requirement for a strategic plan? I mean, I
I
know
don't
that
think so.
just
I don't
from
think
based
so.
on it that most counties have them. And I guess that it's a budgeting tool, and I think it has to be a working document you look at way more than every 10 years or whatever that.
Mhm.
Yeah, well,
Because it's going to change and has to be flexible, just like you say, for exactly those reasons. But it's hard to budget if you don't look 5 to 10 years down the road at your road maintenance and say, what am I going to do? And that should be part of your strategic plan, so that you can start putting those projects together that make sense with the budget long term. And those will change. There's no question that projects are going to change, weather may move things around, whatever it is. Same with building maintenance. When is it in the next 10 years we have to put a roof on the courthouse, or 20 years? And that should be part of that plan in the long term, even though it's a moving target.
Mhm.
We have to get it on the radar screen to even do a good job of budgeting down the road. And in that plan, when do the SIPS funds begin to tail off, and what, those things that are going to affect, it really gets down to what's going to affect that budget in the long run. Revenue wise and expense wise.
Mhm.
Just so you just kind of have something out there that you're
Yeah.
not just shooting year to year to year.
But what I'm wondering is if maybe what the structure we need to look at, and we can talk about it more, obviously, when we have our thing, but kind of what I was hoping for is a document, and maybe it's sort of a hybrid, where you've got big picture things so the public knows what we're working toward. But then you have kind of mini plans, if you will, that sit underneath those little umbrellas. So maybe one of the strategic goals is that we are creating 10 or 15-year facilities plans. And so that's the strategic goal. The facilities plans falls underneath that, right? It's not actually part of the bigger. Does that make sense? And maybe not.
And I think you
making
got some
myself-
community want to see what you're thinking about in economic development down the road, so
Yeah.
what are those, and they could be an item of its own under that, but you need to, we really need to look at that. What is it we want something to look like? You got to have a goal out there, you never achieve it.
well, one of my things when we did that, and I think we kind of went from one extreme from the last strategic plan to this one.
Sounds like
we
the
went-
other one was really bulky.
It was very bulky, and there was a lot of time spent, and it was time well spent, but then there wasn't any follow through. And so that was my biggest concern, is did it become so intricate and defined that people didn't want to look at it because, we're not going to be able to do that, so let's just not even look at that anymore.
I've got to do a
We're-
review, somehow schedule an annual review or something, I would think.
Well, yes, and that's something that didn't happen.
Well, I think
And I think it's a working document, and I think people do look at it maybe a little differently than I do, as in, it is a working document. And is it every year, or is it every 6 months we stop and say, where are we?
I would say it's every quarter.
Okay, quarterly, we
mean-
stop and say, where are we? And then we adjust. And if we leave ourselves enough room to make those adjustments, then we can come back and say, okay, we reviewed the strategic plan, and in order to educate people, what we're doing is, and these are the things under this that we're going to be working on in the next quarter.
Well, if you're
Does that
if you're reviewing it every quarter, you can build that longer term plan by just doing that and things that really
Right,
make sense
yeah.
and add to it, so it becomes more of a working document that's, more realistic.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, and you'll read it when you review the old one, that I do want to steer us clear of, that I think the previous court did a good job of, is I think there's a perception out there that when we talk about a Gilliam County strategic plan, we are talking about setting goals for the entire county, including all of the taxing districts underneath us. What we would do on on education, what we would do on health, what we would do on, and I really feel strongly that in order for a strategic plan to be effective, you have to be able to affect the outcomes of it. And we're not elected to set education policy.
Right.
We're not elected to set health policy. That's not, there are separate boards that do that. And I think there's still some confusion thinking that it's the county's prerogative to dictate to the schools what their facilities plan should look like, what
Yeah,
curriculum they
absolutely.
should.
Yeah, no.
That
And
should
so
not
I
be-
just want to make sure that as we go into this, that we continue to educate the public about they have elected representatives who need to be developing their own strategic
Right,
plans
right.
for education. And that doesn't mean that maybe the county's strategic plan includes that we are supportive in helping all of the other districts meet their strategic goals. I mean, maybe that is part of our plan, but I just want to avoid, because I think looking at the old one and the reason it was so cumbersome is they tried to make it a vision that included PCDC, the school districts, the health districts. Well, that's all well and good, but when one of those boards then decides they're not going to follow through, there's no way for us as the governing body of the county government to be able to force action. And then you end up with a plan that goes nowhere. So,
Makes sense.
okay, any other announcements? The only other thing I wanted to note was that Frontier Telenet does have a budget meeting coming up on the 25th and a board meeting after that.
Okay.
And I think that was the only other, there's the usual AOC meetings and things like that. But that was the only other one that I wanted to flag for the public. If you're interested in listening in, that is also a public meeting and it's usually conducted over Zoom. So anything else for the good of the order?
I don't have anything.
All right, it is 12:24 and I will adjourn the meeting.
Okay.